Help us break down this mystery. Grab a seat, we guarantee you're in wonderful company, unraveling these mysteries with Mr. and Mrs. E. Mr. and Mrs. E.
Launch sequence activated. Prepare for light speed.
Keeping the missing relevant with Mr. E, Mrs. E. Let's not forget the sweet and E, and of course the best grand E, unraveling these mysteries. Stay a while and share your thoughts. Help us break down this mystery. Grab a seat, we guarantee you're in wonderful company, unraveling these mysteries with Mr. and Mrs. E.
Auntie, is that you? Yes. Bring in the crime dogs. It's time.
Unraveling these mysteries. Stay a while and share your thoughts. Help us break down this mystery. Grab a seat, we guarantee you're in wonderful company, unraveling these mysteries with Mr. and Mrs. E. Unraveling these mysteries with Mr. and Mrs. E.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Mr. E Crimecast. I am Mr. E. Tonight, I am not joined by Mrs. E, although she will be off camera doing a little production for us. Auntie will also not be here to join. Just want to thank everybody for coming in. Good to see Bullhorn Betty. Always good to see you here. Dreaming of blue skies and sandy beaches. Real Me Too, PJ, and everyone else. Of course, we appreciate all the orange hearts and support of Middle E, who's doing well. So we're very excited to do this tonight. We've got some guests in studio, actually, here from the podcast Murder on Music Row. I'd like to welcome in Keith Sharon from the Tennessean and also Kirstin Fiscus from the Tennessean.
Thanks a lot.
So thank you so much for being here. It's good to meet you guys today.
Yeah.
So you've probably heard me, if you've been watching our channel for a while, you've probably heard me reference this podcast a few times. I've become a fan of it over the last couple of years here. And so we reached out to Keith, and he was gracious to come and join us to talk about the podcast here. So for those that don't know, the Murder on Music Row podcast started, did you launch it in 2023?
23. Song of the year.
Right.
But the first case was 16th Avenue South, 2 bullets in the back of the head, execution style. So it was perfect name.
Yeah. And I think everyone always assumed that the song was inspired by the crime.
So did I. And called the very first interview I ever did was with Larry Cordell, who wrote the song Murder on Music Row.
Yeah.
And I asked him about being inspired by that crime, and he said, no, I was not inspired by that crime at all.
Yeah.
In fact, not very many people know this. In our very first conversation, he told me when he wrote the song, people thought he was writing about the Schulman case.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I thought, Schulman, and I put it in a file in my head somewhere.
Yeah.
And then came back to it. So he wasn't inspired by the song. He and Larry Shell wrote the song knowing about the murder. It was a front page story in the Tennessean for a long time, unsolved for 13 years. So they had heard about the case, and everyone seemed to have their theories about what had happened.
Right.
But the song, even though it lines up, wasn't inspired by the real story at all.
So I was so surprised to hear him say that, because I thought it had to be subconsciously, because that he had it in the back of his mind. Maybe didn't realize it, and
it was happening right outside, literally, his office where he was writing. So.
Right. And I hear the song all the time. So it's a great song. I usually listen to the George Strait version. But several people have recorded it.
He was gracious enough to come in the office and play it on his guitar.
Yeah.
And so it was incredible. So enjoyed. That was a good way to kick it off.
Right. And Kirstin, did you work on the first season, or did you join on season 2? Here?
Officially, I joined on season 2, but I was kind of an unofficial influence in season 1, because not anymore, but we used to sit in the same, like I sat in one row of desks and he sat in the other. So there's nothing between us except a walkway.
Yeah.
And so he would pull out all of his court records or whatever, and I'd go over there to chat with him about something else, and I'd be like leafing through what's on his desk, and I'm like, well, tell me about that,
Right.
Or he would lean over, he'd just turn around in his chair, and the sound of his chair turning around, I would also turn my chair around, because I just felt the eyes on the back of my head
Had a question
to ask me a question.
Yeah.
Right. So I helped him a little bit walked him through the process of getting court records, because I do that fairly frequently for my day job as a breaking news reporter.
Right.
And he would ask my opinion on things. We had moments where we were acting out the diagram from the crime scene, like how the positioning of the bodies would have gotten where the body would have gotten where it got, kind of thing. And
I've never understood it. So before, I know some of our audience may know this crime, some may not, but this is one I mean, both of these murders, actually, I've been researching to a certain extent for the last 20 years, and the positioning at that crime scene, I've never been able to understand it, the way the bullet enters and where the gunman was. It doesn't make sense.
I've acted it out many times myself. I had most famously, I took my wife over there Thanksgiving Day. I guess it's 3 years ago now.
Yeah.
And kind of like acted out the crime in front of her because you can't do it. The point is that when you try to recreate what happened, you can't. And so that always made me question the stories of the people who told them.
Sure. And that's even with eyewitnesses. There's several eyewitnesses to that crime.
Right.
And still doesn't make sense. So I might have to, when we get to that part, I may have to have, because I just cannot visualize it in my mind, how that all played out. But so the murder on Music Row happened, of course, of 1989, March 9th. And Mrs. E, would you mind to pull up the victim's picture? Kevin Hughes. So Kevin, he's actually, sometimes I think when we do true crime stories, it's easy to kind of see rose-colored glasses with the victim and but he actually was a great guy in a very corrupt industry. Yes. He was trying to be a whistleblower and a change agent to what was happening. And payola might be something that's familiar to some people, but that was a very common practice and was maybe still a common practice, I suppose. And Kevin was trying to fight back against that.
I think he tried to operate with integrity. He tried to make the right decisions. He had temptations along the way and may have taken a couple of $100 handshakes, may have sidled up to some of the underbelly of Nashville.
Sure.
But he knew this was wrong. And as he got deeper and deeper into it, he tried to operate on the right side of the law and do what's right. And his integrity got him killed. Yeah. I'm convinced that had he just continued to play the game, he might be on your podcast today. I don't know, but he emphatically took a position against the bad guys publicly. He had a couple of public incidents, and then he pushed the wrong buttons and turned against the wrong people.
Yeah. And one of the things that you talk about in your podcast is how scared a lot of people were to talk.
Right.
And this is 35 years or so. Right. And people still don't want to talk about this case.
Several times I was told that in no way will I talk to you about this as long as people involved are still alive. I have looked over my shoulder in parking garages. I've thought about, gosh, I take the same route to work all the time and I park in the same spot and maybe I shouldn't do that. But you know what? I've been doing this a long time, 40 plus years in journalism. And I've done a lot of stories that make a lot of people upset.
Sure.
And you kind of have to live with it. So I try to be fearless and ask uncomfortable questions, and that makes the work better. When you can confront people about uncomfortable things, then you're doing your job, I think.
Yeah, I was going to ask a little bit about this too, because I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do that, because it's how do you both disarm people, keep it friendly, and not just have them close the door on you? And I would think that's very difficult. But you got a lot of information from people that in both podcasts where you would think they may not want to talk at all.
Correct. But still there were. I want to tell you about the time. People are wary, especially now in the social media age, YouTube, like we're doing here tonight. Yeah. Anything can backfire on someone. Sure. So I had famously now a person approach me who had a burner telephone. Do you know that story?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm at home, get a call one Sunday evening, and it's from it says unknown number, and they invite me to a place 40 miles from my house. But before I go, I have to guess who I believe is talking to me. And I have to write down the name and put it in a sealed envelope and bring that to the place with me. And I just told my wife, I gotta go. Let's see what happens. I got lectured later by my daughter for not having a tracking device on my phone or whatever. I didn't, do anything correctly. But I showed up at this bar and sat there, and you stare at everyone thinking, is that the person?
That's
is that the
wild.
person? And then a person comes up to me and asks for the envelope. So I know, okay, that's who it is.
Right.
And I give the envelope, and they read the envelope, and I got the name wrong. But they said, you followed the directions, so I'm going to sit here and tell you what I know. And that turned out to be a really good source.
Yeah.
And we talked earlier before we came on camera about keeping secrets, and that's what you've got to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's incredible.
Yeah.
So this particular, the first season,
Yeah.
Did you, when you were saying we were kind of looking over your shoulder, is that just in general with the career or this particular case?
It was this case because so many people, for example, I would call someone to say, hey, would you like to meet for lunch?
Yeah.
I'd like to talk to you about the Murder on Music Row case. You want to meet for lunch? And I could tell in their voice, they're reluctant, and they go, well, if we do meet for lunch, how about if we meet far away in a place with, and then when I would show up to that place, they would be in some corner booth in the back hiding.
Right.
And they were concerned, and so when they all reacted that way, then I started to realize, hey, this is serious.
Yeah.
And I think there are still problems in the music industry, and I think there's still versions of payola that go on, and I was starting to scratch the surface of that. The case I did was old, and for the most part, we know who the participants were, but there were still a lot of promoters, music producers who had dabbled in that kind of nefarious activity.
Yeah. And everybody, and I talked to someone just recently who's been involved in music, and I just asked that question: does this still go on? And they said, "Oh yes, yeah, it has."
I got a note afterward from Ashley McBride,
mm-hmm.
the big country star,
right?
And she thanked me for trying to crack a corrupt system.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yes, and that's one of the messages of, if there's a little theme, it's kind of that,
right?
Do we win that war against that corruption or not?
Right.
For people that don't know what the payola is essentially the idea that you have if I understand this right, so you have the record promoter, they go to the young musician and they say, hey, if you give me $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, I can get you a song on the charts.
Right.
They take that money, then they bribe the DJs around the country to fake the numbers they report in. Then all of a sudden you've got a hit at number 13 or 37 or whatever.
What confused me at the beginning was traditional payola, it only involves the DJs. So it would be the people involved in the industry bribing hotel rooms, liaisons, money to DJs to play their records.
Yes.
What I didn't know, and I think what Kevin Hughes didn't know, is that record chart, the top 50 independent singers' songs in Nashville was the target of so many corrupt people, because you arrive on a bus from Iowa with your acoustic guitar. Your goal is to get on that chart, and what would you do to get on that chart? How much would you pay? And there are people, the bottom feeders in this business are ready to jump at the chance to milk every dime that they can out of those wide-eyed people from out of town.
Yeah.
And so it would literally be, I need $10,000. did I say $10,000? I need $15,000. I need 20. And if
Yeah.
you'd like a number one hit, it's going to be 50.
Right.
And sometimes these people had what I heard referred to as whales, rich parents, they had backing from people who believed in them, and there was a source of money. And so these promoters would latch on to the source of money and say, you want your kid to get on the charts this week, you're going to have to come through me. And there was this guy, Chuck Dixon, who was in control of that Cashbox chart. Cashbox wasn't even a well-regarded magazine.
Yeah.
I ranked them. I talked to some people who knew the business really well, and they said it was probably 5th or 6th among trade publications in Nashville.
Yeah, I remember.
You know, there's Billboard and Radio and Records and all kinds of charts, but Cashbox was the one with a criminal running it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and Chuck was a hard person to find a picture of for us. I think I found maybe 2 total. One was on a phone I think you had on your Facebook page, and then a newspaper clipping. But he really wasn't behind the scenes. He's not a very public.
Yeah, like literally a shadowy figure.
And a little bit of a caricature too, right? He was obsessed with The Godfather and thought he was like this mafioso type of guy,
and wore the pinky rings and the shirts with the necklaces, and traveled around as much as he could in a limo with a driver, and wore black, and he was that kind of guy.
Yeah, and there's some disinformation that I had found on that case before I ever heard your podcast, because I was familiar with it. I remember coming across stories that he was tied to the Philadelphia mob, and that his death was a hit, which doesn't appear to actually be true at all.
No, I don't believe that to be true. I talked to people close to Chuck who talked about his death, and it didn't go down the way the rumors said it did. He was from Pennsylvania, and is buried in Pennsylvania, but I don't believe he had ties. I think he was a dreamer too. I think he started off with a guitar and a dream, like a lot of kids, and then saw that there was this other side to the business side of country music, and that's where he set his stake.
Yeah. So again, for people that, yes, you have a question?
We have some joiners that just kind of want to know what's going on.
Sure. So yes, people do kind of roll in once we start these live streams. So we are with the hosts of Murder on Music Row, a podcast that I'm a huge fan of. Reached out to Keith and asked if he wouldn't mind to come and talk about the cases and the podcast. And Kirsten has been working with them on I didn't realize, but partly on season 1 also, but full on board here with season 2. And so we're talking about the murder of Kevin Hughes, which is in season 1. Essentially, he was a chart director for Cashbox magazine and saw the corruption there. Rather than quit, because he could have just quit the job. Rather than quit, he decided to stay on and try to make a change within the magazine, and died for that, we think.
Yeah. I think he was about to quit. I talked to people who said that he had a job fair that he was going to attend. He didn't have a lot of money. He wasn't part of the gravy train, and I think he was going home that weekend to tell his parents that it was a big decision for him to leave Belmont to take the job as the chart director. He dropped out of college, and his parents had hoped he would get a college degree. That's why he came to Nashville. But he had his dream position, he thought, and it was getting too much. And so I think he was going to tell them that I'm leaving that position. Yeah. But he never made it home that weekend.
Yeah. So he was gunned down on 16th Avenue, 3 shots. So the circumstances of it are he was out to dinner with a country singer named Sammy Sadler, who was kind of an up and comer, kind of like had a couple of modest hits basically. Mm-hmm. And somehow they became friends. I'm not quite sure how that ever occurred, but they were apparently. Went to a Captain D's out on the West End. They're driving back to Evergreen Studios, which was where Sammy recorded some of his singles. And according to Sammy, I think he says, well, I need to call my dad back in Texas.
He said,
Is that right?
he said, how about if we stop, because I can make free long distance phone call. The call would be free.
Right.
That was the reason to stop there. If we go inside and call my parents, the call won't. We can charge it to the business.
Yeah.
That's where he worked every day. I think that's how they met. I think Sammy was calling in his own numbers to Kevin, which always struck me as kind of strange. Kevin was so old fashioned. This is before computers.
Yeah.
And it was he knew that they were behind. He had graph paper and a pencil.
Yeah.
When Billboard had computers.
Right.
And so he was calling radio stations to get, how many times did you play a Sammy Sadler song this week? And he would write down what they said, and he would add them up at the end, and that would be it would result in his chart. Well, I found, Sammy explained to me that he himself, Sammy, would call the radio stations, I guess, and find out how much they played his songs, and then he would call Kevin to report his own numbers, and they got to know each other over the years.
Yeah.
They had worked together for 5 years before Sammy came in 84, and he said he didn't really know Kevin the whole time until the last 3 or 4 months of Kevin's life.
Yeah. And Sammy, in the podcast, you do a lot of exploration on him, and he becomes one of the most interesting people in the thing, because you're not quite sure what to believe from Sammy, because he claims a lot of naivete on the whole industry and the corruption in it, when clearly after you interview all these other folks that worked in the business in that time, it's kind of an open secret that this was a pay to play kind of thing. So you kind of wonder, how much did Sammy really know? He did get shot in the hit. And it was life-changing for him.
Okay, that picture. Is that it?
Yeah. So this is him, I think, at the hospital with his mother.
Mm-hmm. That's his mother, and he got shot in the elbow in the front seat of the car. So he survived the murder on Music Row. Kevin rolled out of the car, ran down the street, got shot in the back, was knocked down, and then 2 in the back of the head.
Yeah, that's so brutal.
And Sammy was shot in the elbow. But here's the thing. When Kirstin could vouch for this, when I started, I had no preconceived idea about the case. I started with, I'm going to tell an interesting story. This murder sounded like a true crime podcast, right?
Yeah.
2 bullets in the back of the head, execution style on 16th Avenue South, one of the most famous streets in America. And then I heard Sammy interviewed over and over and over again. And what I kept hearing him say was that he had 18 hours of surgery.
I've heard this.
18 hours of surgery. And I started to think, wow, that's a lot of surgery.
Yeah.
18 hours for a bullet in the elbow. So I got a hold of his doctor. And I said, were you on that night? And he said, I don't remember how many hours exactly it was, but it couldn't have been more than 6. That procedure that he had generally takes about 6 hours. And then I saw that there were police reports at the hospital where they interviewed him at 9 o'clock in the morning. So shooting takes place at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah. If
you figured Sammy got there within 45 minutes, half hour, maybe an hour at the outside, he was rushed to Vanderbilt. It's not that far from 16th Avenue. He goes into surgery 11, 12. Police are at his bedside, and he's giving an interview at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
It's impossible that he had 18 hours of surgery. Impossible. But he said it over and over. And so I started to look at everything he said. I did a deep dive on how you stitch a grafted injury in an elbow. And he said he had 100 staples in his arm. And generally the staples are less than a quarter inch apart. And so how giant was the wound if you have 100 stitches?
Right.
And so I'm going, those are not factual.
Yes.
And then I started to look in the police file, and he was a suspect. And in all of the interviews I've heard, he is the poor guy. He got shot with his friend in the car, and it ruined his music career. But the more I dug, the more his name was at the top of the list of the police who investigated, not the bottom. They treated him differently than the sympathetic guy who took a bullet with his friend for country music.
Right.
And literally that's how Sammy describes himself. And so I just kept asking questions about that.
Yeah. What do you think the 18 hours, what was that about? Why did he just get confused over time, or was there some?
I think sympathy.
Okay.
I think he wanted to show that he had been through a life-threatening night.
Yeah.
That had the most incredible facts connected to it that could possibly be.
Yeah.
And he was determined to tell that story over and over and over again.
Yeah. I've heard him in several different podcasts over the years talk about it. And it ruined his ability to play guitar.
Right.
You know, I mean, it was his right arm, and it took him years to do the pincer thingy,
right,
to play and pick. And so I have some sympathy for him, for sure. I just don't know. And I can't tell, listening to him talk, how much of it is just time has gone by.
Mm-hmm.
And is it just, you just don't remember certain details, or, you know, over time, we all misremember things, especially that long.
I read his book.
Yeah.
I think 4 times.
Okay.
And took notes. And I was struck by what he included and what he didn't include in his book. And one of the things he didn't include in his book at all, I mean, remember the story you just told.
Yeah.
The story that he tells is how a bullet ruined his career.
Right.
Except that when you look at Cashbox Magazine, his songs did better on the charts after he was shot than before he was shot.
That's a tough part of the story.
Yeah.
It really is.
So it didn't ruin his career. It elevated his career.
Yeah.
And he made records with Chuck Dixon after the shooting of Kevin Hughes. And, you know, so he was a suspect, and then he was not.
Right.
And they have nothing that they could, other than circumstantial evidence. And so that's the story I told. I laid out the circumstantial evidence that the police have compiled against him, and then I asked him face to face about that evidence, and he didn't always have great answers for that.
That's in your podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of those not great answers, and I just don't know. And well, that's not the way I remember it. Stuff like that. But the paths to get home, going out of the way, and all of those things are. But you're right. The chart after, and him not even mentioning in that book, that's pretty rough.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things just completely theorizing on my end with him, I wonder if maybe he just knew a little, but not a lot of the big picture.
Could be.
It may be just a complete theory, but it could be a situation where he was just said, where he was told, you know, bring Kevin here. We're going to rough him up a bit, put a scare into him, get this whole thing straightened out. Because the belief and the rumor around that time was that he might be a whistleblower, that he was looking at going to maybe the Tennessean or the police or something, because he was frustrated with the lack of progress he was having in making the charts legitimate, I guess, because everybody else is making money hand over fist, right, with these bribes. So if that was the belief, then Kevin had to be. Maybe he just thought he was going to put a scare into him. Didn't know it was going to go the way it was.
Could be.
Could be that way.
Mm-hmm.
or maybe at the beginning he lied about a little something and never could go back on that. To not implicate. There's a wide spectrum of why he may have been deceptive. Maybe a little knowledge to a lot, and probably only he knows, I guess.
I asked him directly about participating in the payola scheme, and he was adamant that he never paid a dime. So what I started to do was call other people on the chart. I would call the person in the number 1 position on the chart, and I found her. And then the number 2 on the chart, and I found, and they all had big money people backing them who paid lots and lots of money to get on the chart. And Sammy said he didn't. And then I asked him one time, did your father pay? He said, no, my father would never pay. And I said, did he pay for anyone? And he had paid for other people with other music projects. So he would not pay for his own kid, but he would pay for other people. So I don't know. It's a question I raised. It's a question that the police took a position on. Sammy was not considered a suspect. He was called as a witness to the case, and he was not prosecuted. Yeah, never arrested.
Right. Yeah. I wondered though if they had the theory at some point. I guess do you think the theory was, because he does get shot? I wonder if their working theory was, were they trying to eliminate a connection, or was that staging if he was involved? So I kind of have those two thoughts about that. I don't know if there's any way to know the truth of that.
One of the things that Kirstin mentioned reenacting in the office was the position of the car seats and the blood and how he got, how he must have taken a shot in the elbow.
Right.
But the unanswerable question is how his blood, he's the only one that bled in the car.
Yeah.
Kevin was not shot in the car. There's no Kevin blood in that car. How does Sammy Sadler's blood from one wound get on Kevin's side of the driver's side seat?
Yeah.
In pools on that side.
And there's like the big console in the middle. So it's not like one of those cars where you've got the bench seating. Yeah. He would have had to really get in that bucket.
So in the office, I would put chairs next to each other and have people like reenact falling over in the car to try to. There must have been contact between Sammy and Kevin. Why did Kevin barrel roll out of the car? Why not just step out of the car? So maybe Sammy fell on top of him, and that's how his elbow got on that side. But don't know.
I know it's hard to wrap your head around physically how you could do it.
The other physical thing was, how did the gunman get from the spot between the two buildings, which I have stood many times with a car in the position. We have the photo of where the car was the night of the shooting. And like, there's a sidewalk grate, and I park right with my nose in my car on the exact same sidewalk grate and hide between the two houses. And there's nothing in between that would hinder me.
I'm sure you get some looks doing that.
Yeah. have. And walk around. I have somebody walk around the side of the car and get in the front seat. How can I get from the hiding spot to wedged in between that door and pull a gun? It's impossible.
Right.
It's impossible to get there in the time that Sammy said that it all happened.
And this is a part I can't visualize when he tells the story. Is he saying that he was seated and the door was still open and the guy was just like
suddenly he was right there?
Like couldn't close the door because
close the door. Like if he would have tried to close the door, he would have hit the gunman. Their knees were nearly touching.
That's how he just. So it was, and that's a wide open area.
The window was up.
It's a wide open spot.
He didn't shoot through the window, so it had to have been the way the gunman had to be where Sammy said.
Okay.
But how do you hide? Where do you hide?
And how do you get up to the car without either Kevin or Sammy
Yeah.
seeing you.
And they should have been suspicious, right? Because
they were
according to their
suspicious.
story,
They were looking out. There was a
Yeah.
guy
Yeah.
lurking in the neighborhood, and they weren't sure, and they were scared. They waited on the porch and checked to see if it was safe.
right?
And then they went out, and then there happened to be a guy with a ski mask and a gun. How did he know where to stand?
It's
That's
not-
the question. The number one
Yeah.
question in this whole thing is, how did the gunman know where to be?
Right.
If
Oh,
I'm going
right.
to kill Kevin Hughes, why do I go to Evergreen Records? Kevin doesn't have a connection to Evergreen Records other than he takes phone calls there.
Right.
Sammy has the connection to Evergreen Records.
Right.
Why are they there?
Right. And that's the part we didn't, our audience, if they haven't listened to your podcast yet, they don't know, but that it was an unplanned stop and Kevin had really no connection to Evergreen Studios. So if he was the target of an assassination, how was he found if,
Right.
if Sammy wasn't supposed to bring him there? What about the idea that they were followed? Is that a possibility?
That's what Sammy says.
Yeah.
Sammy said, I must have been followed from the early afternoon, because this started when he went to see Kevin at the cash box
Yeah.
office. And then they randomly, well, the first random thing is that they're together at all.
Right.
Sammy says he got in an argument with his wife and he could have gone anywhere. He just wanted to get out of the house.
Yeah.
And he calls Kevin. And I say in the podcast, that's the most unlucky phone call out of all your
Yeah.
friends, all the places on Lower Broadway you could have gone, any bar. He chooses the guy where there's a gunman waiting in the parking lot to follow them, not to kill them there.
Yeah.
He doesn't shoot them at the cash box office. He waits and they go to Captain D's for dinner, and he doesn't shoot them there. He waits until they get to Evergreen. So if he's following, though, where does he park? Nobody saw. How does he know to hide in that spot? Where does he park his car? How did he get away? There's a lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah. I mean, you found a lot of answers, but there's still these lingering little bits and parts.
Right.
And there was a lot of witnesses too. So it was
Well-
like 5 people, I think, weren't or so.
Or more. Who described a kind of awkward ski mask with giant holes where you could see that it was clearly white guy.
Yeah.
With a strange gait, a little bit chubby, overweight.
Yeah.
And when Sammy's questioned, he says skinny black guy.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't, again, why is he saying that? Why is it different? And the killer turned out to be the former. He's a white guy with a bad back and
The guy with a million,
overweight. Yeah.
the guy with a million names, Tony D, Tony
Yeah.
D'Antonio,
Yeah.
Tony D'Antonio. At first I thought,
The
I remember
tone.
the first time I ever researched this story, I was like, oh, okay, well, that reporter got the name wrong. And so, but I saw the name again, and then, various articles you'd go through, and this, like,
Yeah.
oh, he just went by
Yeah. all
6
of them.
different names or
Right.
so.
Mhm.
He did.
Like these kind of the wannabe gangsters that Chuck and this guy kind of were.
Mhm.
And he did a pretty good deep dive on that guy too, and he had a pretty seedy
Mhm.
filing.
He was a bad dude connected
Yeah.
with some bad people and running drugs for the cartel. Like, that blew my mind.
Yeah.
He was up to his eyeballs in criminal activity.
Yeah. And so it's anyway, I don't want to give away too much on the
Mhm.
podcast. I do want people to go and listen to it. It's amazing. One lesson to take from it is a lot of the cases we follow on our channel are active, unsolved cases, missing person cases, whether it's, Summerwell, Sebastian Rogers, and others, where people are like, where's justice? Is it ever coming? What's the holdup on all this? And it took them 14 years
Right.
Mhm.
to solve this murder. So, and there were kind of reasons for it. They
Mhm.
had a informant, and it was just going to take some time
Right.
with that informant. And it's hard to be patient when we're the public.
Right.
It doesn't always mean that the police and detectives aren't doing their job. Sometimes it just takes time.
Mhm.
In this
Yeah.
case, Bill Pridemore, the lead detective, wasn't even an active detective. He had been transferred to the cold case
Yeah.
unit when the miraculous bullet in Flintstone, Georgia came to be.
Yes.
You know, so that's another, we don't have to go into details about that, but that's another incredible moment that how do you recreate that? How does that happen in real life? I don't know, but.
Well, there's a detective I follow on YouTube, Chris McDonough. He does the Interview Room. I don't know if he's a California detective, I believe. But anyway, he talks about sometimes detectives will say that there are times when you're doing an investigation and you feel the hand of God on you,
right,
where you're being guided through things. And that's what I thought when we got to that part of the podcast where the bullet.
Mm-hmm.
And Pridemore said, I got down on my knees and thanked God that day. Yeah.
I mean, just a 1 in a billion chance almost that he was gonna solve that case, and does.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's what sometimes it takes a little luck,
right,
too. But yeah, so that story. That podcast is great. You won some awards for that, I believe, too.
We did. We won the Green Eye Shade Award. We won the Editor and Publisher Award. For the podcast, and I was really proud of the work we did, and it enabled us to be here because it enabled us to get a season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and we're going to do a season 3 too. So
that's I was going to ask at some point.
Breaking
so
news.
That's
There's a season 3 coming.
Is it too early to say which case you're doing?
It's too early to say.
We haven't decided.
We haven't decided yet.
Well. Hey, we're open to suggestions.
Oh, okay. I think we got it. Yeah, if you do want me to highlight any questions, just let me know.
Yes.
Is it on Spotify?
It is on Spotify. Yes. If you just search "Murder on Music Row," the Tennessean, just make sure that you use the term "the Tennessean," and you'll find us.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's your style is and you kind of make it a little cultural too. You tie in a lot of just what's going on with the country music industry and how. It's not just about the murder. Actually, you kind of paint the picture of the city at the time.
Well, so Ben Goad is the editor of the Tennessean, and he's the one who had this idea long before I got to the Tennessean. I started in 2021. He didn't approach me until 2022 to start doing the research. He had this idea 5 years before. It was a good pairing because I wanted to do a podcast so badly. But I remember the very first day he called me in and said, the test with this is to do as much about music as you do about murder. If you can do that, that's what we want. And, and for me, the storytelling is just as important. And hopefully in both seasons, even if you took the murder out, it's still a great story about a time and a place. And how Garth Brooks got his start, and how Alan Jackson and Travis Tritt and all those guys were coming on in that time. That was the era.
Yeah.
And then in this season, Hee Haw and Johnny Cash and all those guys are linked to the time and place of this murder.
Yeah. So your season 2 actually makes a pretty good jump ahead a little bit to 98 and all of that. And it's a different story. Because you've got with Skull, you've got the first season. It's a pretty well done investigation overall. Season 2, that's not really going to look like that's the case. I'm only on episode 4 because I just dropped today, I believe.
Yes.
Is it out there in other places where all 8 episodes are dropped, or is it just?
So all 8 episodes are available for subscribers right now.
I gotcha.
Yes. And then the rest of the episodes are being released weekly.
Right.
And we will also have a bonus episode that we have already recorded and I'm currently in the process of producing right now.
Yeah.
And that will drop after all the rest drop as well.
And so you started working more with this show. So how does the pair work? What's the roles here?
I don't know. How do we work together, Keith?
Is it the G-Haw, like you say with Pridemore?
We do G-Haw, yes.
It's a little callback to season 1 of Murder on Music Row.
So I don't even know who came to you. Was it Banner that said maybe we should get me involved?
No, it was you. So
I was dropping hints. I was like, I really want to work on this.
I remember the day that you were explained to me that you did this in college.
Oh, the audio work. I did audio work in
Oh, yeah.
college. Yes.
And so in the discussion of what are we going to do on season 2? How's this going to work? I was like, well, Kirsten's sitting right there and she can do audio stuff. She did it in college. I
Yeah.
had no idea. I don't even know
Yeah.
I don't know what, I'm a dinosaur this way. I don't know how to do a microphone or anything, but she apparently does, and had all kinds of suggestions on season 1. And then it was, I got to get the police file. And,
Yes.
and she knew immediately who to call, how to fill out the forms. Nashville, I think it's in the first 4 episodes, the dance we had to do to get the file about the skull case was incredible. It took her every bit of her expertise to negotiate how we got that file. So you might want to start and explain.
Yeah. So
this was her origin story.
And your background is when you were in Montgomery, you were like the crime beat reporter there, right? That's kind of what.
Yes.
So-
Yeah. So pretty much the entirety of my professional full-time career, I've been a breaking news reporter. So crime, courts, that kind of stuff. Death, murder, mayhem, that sort of thing is my niche. But so when he needed these records, I was like, oh, well, we have to file the specific form with the police department. And we filed that in November of 2024, right? What is time? Filed it in November of 2024. And they came back to us and said, you owe us over $900 for these records.
Wow.
And we were like, are you sure?
Yeah.
And so state law says that we can review these records without getting copies of them for free.
Yes.
So they said, okay, that's fine, but there's a process, and you only have 1 hour, and you can only have paper and pencil to come look at these records. Thousands of pages of documents. So we go to police headquarters.
The stack is
substantial.
8 inches high.
And you've got an hour and a pen and paper.
An hour and pen and paper. So
Oh
we walk in together, and they seat us at this table, much like we're sitting now.
Yeah.
And across from us, looking at us, were 2 other records clerks.
Making sure you're not.
With a stopwatch.
Yes.
With a stopwatch.
Making sure we're not taking any papers, making sure, we're not.
Oh,
well,
and
I
and I
kind of
remember
understand that
in
part.
the
Sure.
very first minute, I didn't know how I was going to mark the pages so what we were doing was reviewing to mark the pages that we were going to then copy later. Because you've got thousands of pages.
Right.
There's duplicates. We had already gone to the courts and gotten everything from the trial
For free,
record
by the way.
for free.
Yeah.
And so some of the things that were in the police report were also in that court record.
So we didn't need everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And
we
we
had to figure out a way to mark them. And here's what I did. I leaned over and I was like, hey, how about, and they go, oh, hey, you can't move your seat closer to her. I was like, are you serious? Like, you're not even going to let me lean over to talk to my colleague? No, we're not. So,
Wow.
So we had to breakneck speed going through these pages, marking. Both of us, by the way, different systems of marking.
So what we needed to do is we needed to identify. So they would hand us a stack and they say, okay, look through it, find which pages you need. And then you need to count what number page that is in the stack.
Because they're not marked.
And then you have to write it down. And then you have to file another form, the exact same form you filed before, but then you need to specify
Oh my gosh.
in the Schulman case file, I want pages 1 through whatever in this manila folder that's marked folder A or whatever it was.
Right.
It was very
They had
tedious.
letters.
I'm
Yeah.
sure.
And Keith, I thought I was going to have an aneurysm and lose my mind when he tells me, oh, I'm just guessing. I said,
I wrote stars at the top.
He was like, she can just look for the stars. And I was like, no, Keith, that's not how this works. I was
We got the
livid.
pages we needed. We did.
So how many
Mostly.
how many hour sessions like that did you
We
have
ended
to
up
do?
doing 2.
Okay. Well, that's pretty good.
Didn't we go once and nobody showed up?
No, we only went twice. The
Okay.
second time she was late.
Oh, okay.
But,
all right.
Yeah, it was, we I've never skimmed through so many pages so quickly in my life.
Wow. Just looking for keywords,
Yeah.
names that we didn't recognize, or like threads of the investigation that was going a different way. We were looking for stories to tell.
Yeah.
Witnesses who we didn't know, because
Other suspects.
We knew the case pretty well at that point.
Yeah.
But there's a lot in that file that we didn't know, and we'd say, "Oh, I got a thing here. Have you ever heard this name? No, let's write that down."
Oh, there was a lot.
And then when we had our list of stars versus numbered pages, and we turned it all back in, we then had to request it. And what was it? $114. So it went from 900 to 114 of the pages we actually wanted, and my newspaper paid that, and then we got. And then here's another detail about the way we work together. I am so old school that I got gray folders, 3-ring binders, and I would do the 3-hole punch and put these folders together, and they began to stack up because I had 2 seasons of 1,500, 2,000 pages or whatever. So they're stacking up on my desk, and Kirsten's at the other end, and I kind of felt good because the young person is coming over and flipping through the old school way of looking at documents. They weren't online. We couldn't find them.
Yeah.
And so we had to kind of do it the old fashioned way.
What he doesn't know is I'm a very physical book type of person.
Yes.
I like literally my parents got me a Kindle last year for Christmas because that was the first time I'd ever asked for one.
What?
A Kindle, exactly. Because I was like, I've got to stop spending money on books. Like I just need to use the Libby app. And so anyways, but normally I'm very much like, I like to have the tangible things. Like I will regularly take a stack of court records home with me when I'm like working on something so I can read them when I'm at home. It's just easier for me.
Who now has
to highlight and things?
Gray folders. You do. I've noticed on your desk, you have folders now.
I've always had folders.
Oh, well, I think I rubbed off.
Well, you guys found some stuff though, and the way that investigation was going on. I had a lot of things I had never heard, things I just didn't realize about how botched it really was.
Yeah, it was a mess.
Things, cash register is open in the crime scene photo, but in the reports it would be closed or vice versa. I don't remember which way it was.
When we got those photos, so those photos were part of the file that we got, and we had to go through really quickly. When we finally got them, it was Kirsten or me, I forget which one, noticed that the bottles on the bar would move in the pictures. So there's a picture, and the 2 bottles are next to each other. Right. And remember, an eyewitness said he was killed with a bottle. And so this is the most likely of the murder weapon, right? It's sitting right there in front of him on the bar, and they're moving around in the pictures. And so we see CSI, we see, like, this is not supposed to happen. How'd the bottle get from this part of the bar over to this part of the bar, closer to this edge, back? Somebody was manipulating it for the pictures. Yeah. And
wow.
You ain't supposed to do that.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Can we pull up Skull's picture just so for the people that don't know his case? So this is Skull Schulman.
Gina wanted you to tell Keith something.
Oh. So Gina says, Mr. E, tell him that I graduated from Joe Babcock's daughter, Lori, and she's on the Grand Ole Opry a lot singing. They adopted a lot of children.
Okay.
Yeah, very good. Well, that's awesome.
Thanks for sharing.
So this is Skull here, and this is he was a dresser.
He was a character.
Definitely so. He's right here in Printer's Alley, and he so interesting about Skull. He was rubbing elbows with the elites, the politicians, the business owners, but also all the drug dealers and the bookies and everybody in between.
Yeah.
And so he kind of was connected to everybody in Nashville. His kind of claim to fame is his connection to Hee Haw, probably. That's how most people locally kind of think of him.
How do you explain that? I mean, he wasn't suddenly he's in the cast photo. I
Yeah.
mean, suddenly he's in the television show. He
Yeah.
just kind of weaseled his way
I know.
into the middle of everything.
I know, and people, lots of people remember him whenever his story would come up. Lots of people remember Skull with the dogs, everybody remembers the poodles walking up and down the streets of Nashville. Usually had those 2 or 3 dogs with him. His costuming, he would wear this hee-haw cap everywhere. And just and this is a shot of Printers
My
Alley.
favorite photo right there. If I was writing a book,
Oh yeah,
that would be the cover right there.
okay,
That says interesting place to me.
yes.
Do you walk down that alley?
Yeah. So Printers Alley at different times has had
Right.
different reputations.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
So for me, when I was a kid, if you said you were going to Printers Alley, like people would talk about Printers Alley in the 80s and 90s, it's like you wouldn't go to Printers Alley. That's where you go to get killed. That's the kind of reputation that the alley had, know. And of course, now the last 20 years or so, it's like a cool little spot to go see music and that
Hey,
kind of thing.
I mean, it's jumping ahead a little, but we had a party there to launch this podcast, and it was one of the greatest nights of my life. It's high end, beautiful. Everybody there is so nice. The food is good. The atmosphere is great. Skulls now
it's
is
gorgeous.
really
That club
cool.
is gorgeous. Yeah.
Mhm.
So they did. After the club was closed for many years, they reopened it, kept his name, and have kept it as sort of a tribute to him.
Look who's there.
That's me doing a true crime tour there in Printers Alley. So that's one of the cases we do on one of our tours. So it's a great little spot, I didn't know you were pulling up pictures from the tour there. Yeah, sure. Why not? So for people that don't know, Skull, he worked down in the Rainbow Room for 50 years. He's connected to everyone in music, basically. Paul McCartney wrote a song at this club. He knew Elvis and Bob Dylan and
Willie Nelson and Tim McGraw. He
Yeah.
loaned money to famously.
Yeah.
McGraw thanked him for the start of his career.
Yeah.
Tanya Tucker sang at his bedside when he died. Loretta Lynn went on America's Most Wanted and asked people for help in the case. He knew anybody and everybody
Yeah,
who
people
came through.
I had no idea. General Nealand, he was close
Yeah.
to. If you're a
Right.
UT fan, then that's it's just crazy all the connections you found. And I mean, he really had an incredible, amazing life. He was also a bit of a criminal and an outlaw and all that. I mean, he
Not a bit.
Yeah.
He was a lot of a criminal.
Yeah.
And which, I mean, how smart. He got the dogs. So if you go do deep dive in newspapers.com of Skull Schulman, it's all arrest stories until he got the dogs.
Yeah.
When he got the dogs, it all became nice, sweet, funny. Those dogs softened him up, and then hee-haw, the overalls, the hat, the parties. He was connected with those stars, and he was a marketing genius.
I mean, I knew a little bit about the dogs. I knew he would dye their fur different colors and that kind of thing. I didn't know about the silk pajamas for the dogs, and I didn't
Bank
know.
accounts,
Bank accounts. I mean, it's just
junkets to Vegas.
crazy.
Yeah.
But it was almost like, I don't know if it was just he just kind of lucked his way into it, but for PR purposes,
Right.
you could almost imagine a PR person coming to Skull and saying, "Hey, we know you've got these shady businesses you operate, but if you have some poodles,
Right.
and then
Right.
it'll make you a little more
It
palatable."
worked.
It's a publicity shield.
I don't know if it just was by accident or
He
not.
was in the
but
Tennessean a lot.
Yeah.
Looking back, why were they covering this?
Yeah.
Heaven Lee. I mean, we could do a podcast on Heaven Lee if we wanted to.
Sure.
He discovered Heaven Lee, and I mean, she had danced other places, but she was an attraction there, and the Tennessean covered every move she made.
Yeah.
Many of the dancers, I found a lot of old photos of Easy Rider and Gina Bonbon and all of these women who danced there. That was a story. Like whatever Skull did was a story.
Yeah. I mean, he kind of made stars.
Yeah.
Very often
Mhm.
throughout his life down there. But for people that don't know Tooth Skull, he was murdered on January 21st, 1998. And there's been arrests and convictions. And I always kind of thought, well, that story's closed. And it took a while for justice to happen. A lot happened in between there. but there may be more to the story. And so I think this is interesting where where the podcast is taking all of this. Is it's rejuvenated some interest and brought people out to speak about it that weren't before.
Right.
And so like I think you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, or maybe it was before we went on air. But you said we had the huge story come out this weekend where Jason Pence, so the man pictured here, this is James Cavay.
Correct.
Yes.
He's the man at 17 years old was allegedly the murderer for Skull Schulman in the nightclub. And he's been serving life ever since his conviction. Well, Jason Pence was a teenager living on the streets and testified against Cavay, saying that they were basically in on a robbery gone wrong, and Cavay kills Skull. Okay. Well, now it looks like Pence is taking that back, right?
Doesn't look like it. He literally did. It floored me last Friday. I'm sitting at home. I'm talking to my wife in my home office, and I get a telephone call from a number I don't recognize. And he says, Keith, this is Jason Pence. And oh my goodness. Okay.
Right.
The panic.
Just so happens 2 days before that, Kirsten's in my office and I say, I don't know how to make a recording. How do I? She goes, give me your phone.
So we thought he was going to call.
Oh, right.
The Monday before. And so
Okay.
we had because we'd been told that he is interested in speaking to us. And so we came into the office and he had set up a time, but it was through another person to talk to him. And so we went and we set up in the studio and just waited and sat there and waited, and he never called. And so we're like, well, okay. And he's always been kind of a flighty person when it came to talking with us. So
Yeah.
we're like, okay, that was our chance. And it just is not going to happen.
You got cold feet, second
Right.
thoughts, whatever.
Right.
Sure.
So when we were in the office on that Tuesday or Thursday, I
Wednesday,
can't remember
yeah.
what day, he was like, what if he calls me and I'm at home and you're not there? And I was like,
What am I gonna do?
don't
Yeah.
panic. We can do this.
Yeah.
So she has I just hand her my phone like I always do. And she says, see these squiggly lines at the top on a phone call?
Yeah.
And I called her as she was sitting right next to me, and we practiced, and I hit the button and it was record, and it makes an announcement. This call is being recorded so that both parties know that this is a recorded
Right.
call. And it just so happened that I would have never known to do that. I have lost calls before. The very first time James Cavay and I talked, I tried to record it. Zip.
Oh no.
I did an hour with him on the phone and I got nothing. And I had to apologize. I mean, I'm a professional.
Yeah.
And I had to tell him, we have to do that all
Oh my
again
gosh.
because I don't know how to do my stupid job. And so this time I hit record. I heard the noise that I heard them say, this is being recorded. I asked Jason, did you hear that
Yeah.
on your end? He said, yes. And I said, okay, we're going to record this. And he talked to me for 40 minutes. So the story is that he apologized for ruining James Cavay's life. He said that he was forced, he was beaten, he was fed a narrative by a dirty cop named E.J. Bernard,
Yeah.
who's now dead. And it's too bad because I would like to have him, for an interview to find out what he has to say about this whole thing.
Right.
But after all these years, 28 years, Pence said that he lied on the witness stand and that James doesn't belong in prison and that he will do anything now to help him get out. If the Tennessee Innocence Project or some attorney takes the case, that Pence will cooperate. So
That's amazing.
he had exchanged messages with me last December where he basically outlined the coercion, but this time I heard it in his own voice. You can evaluate whether you think he's telling the truth or not. You'll be able to hear it. We did a bonus episode that has not been released yet, but you'll hear Pence and you'll be able to to say, I think he's telling the truth, or I don't think he's telling the truth. But he had details this time. He was really detailed. I slowed him down. Okay, when did this take place? Where did this take place? What happened? What did he say? What did you say? And so we go through the details. And he said he was in the library on a computer messaging his mother at the time Skull was killed, and that he was interested in trying to get the reward. And so he kind of like inserted himself into the case because he needed money. And his goal was to get that reward money. And the cop kept, in his words, kept feeding him detail after detail, and he kept saying it. And therefore he became the eyewitness.
Yeah.
That's, oh my gosh. That's heartbreaking, actually.
Right.
I mean, that's a nightmare. That's the nightmare scenario for
Cavey.
For Cavey, yeah.
Cavey's family, who are probably watching and listening to this right now.
Yeah.
They've been trying to tell their story for 28 years, and we listened.
Yeah. I saw his sister, I think, comment on your Facebook page for Murder on Music Row, and
right.
It's like, oh my gosh, the sisters speak. That's amazing. That is just incredible. Because if I remember right, you guys have seen way more, obviously, all the stacks of documents, but the only evidence they had, I think, was his testimony, was Pence's. They didn't have really anything else.
2 snitches who got deals because they testified.
Okay, I didn't realize there was a second snitch.
Yeah, 2 snitches and 3 people who saw Cavey with blood on his shirt. And Cavey has an explanation for the blood. And there's a police report. Not in the file that we got. We found E.J. Bernard's notes about that police report that was either lost or purged as a matter of housekeeping or whatever. James Cavey said that the blood happened 2 days later than the witnesses testified. He said that he was homeless. He was a 17-year-old homeless kid who had crawled into a construction place to sleep, and the police rousted him at 3:00 in the morning. And as he was getting out of that spot, he cut his head and he bled on his shirt. And that's what people saw, not the morning after the murder, but 2 days later. And so when I had Pence on the phone on Friday, I said, you testified that it was the morning after the murder. And he said, I don't know what day it was. So does that mean that he is mistaken, that his testimony was the wrong day? James Cavey says, if I could be wrong about my days, then so could they. How can you convict me on what day the blood appeared? So.
Oh my gosh.
And that's it, by the way.
Yeah.
We've talked about all the evidence now.
Yeah.
2 snitches, 3 blood witnesses, and Pence.
And regarding the snitches, Cavey kept very detailed notes about his case. Kept whatever he could, document-wise, the discovery, the evidence against him, with him.
Okay.
And those snitches were his cellmates. So if at any point he was out of his cell, they easily could have looked at the case file. Right.
And we have the letters that they wrote to E.J. Bernard inserting themselves. I want to be out of jail in the next month. If you get me out of jail, I will testify that James Cavey, blah, 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 blah. It was a quid pro quo.
Right.
And if you don't get me out of jail, you'll never hear from me again. I won't say these things. So
I hope that there is some movement for him as somebody takes an interest, at least to give him another chance.
Mm-hmm.
One more thing that's really important is the the day that we were going over the final payment to the police for the documents, I called Don Aaron, the longtime Metro police spokesman, and asked him, "Did you save the blood?" And he said, "Keith, I don't know. It's been 30 years, whatever."
And the case is closed. There's a conviction, so it wouldn't have been surprising if some of the evidence had been purged, right?
Sure.
5 hours later, we got a call, and he said, we have material marked biohazard.
Wow.
So that's blood evidence that they still have. And so if there's touch DNA now that they can do, if you look at those crime scene photos, the killer washed up in the women's bathroom, and there are towels that look like he wiped his hands on.
Right.
So could there be sweat? Could there be another DNA profile? Could he have nicked himself? The early DNA tests from 1998 show only Skull's blood.
Yes.
But if they saved that blood and there's enough to do a DNA profile on, maybe, just maybe.
Huh.
So there are avenues to pursue in this case.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's wild because it's just a murder I've been aware of for a long time, and just really assumed that justice had been served.
A lot of
properly,
people have. And so I was talking to my coworker about this earlier. When we kind of picked this case, we didn't go into this expecting this by any means. We didn't pick it because we thought that there might be an issue with the case. We picked it because for me personally, when I was thinking about the Rainbow Room and the history of the Rainbow Room and like what went on there, in my mind, I was like, it is very visually like stunning and stimulating. And so I was like, if it's visually stimulating and stunning, you can put that into audio. And that's really like, that's where my mind was when I thought about taking on this case.
And mine was music. Mine was, I think that Murder on Music Row forever has got to be the confluence of murder and music. And that was a stage where some of the greatest country musicians ever played. There's the Paul McCartney story and all that stuff. So Skull's Rainbow Room was a lightning rod for musicians, and they had after hours parties and all that stuff. And so when I went into it, I thought I was telling a really interesting story about a really interesting guy.
Yeah.
With a great connection to music and the hee-haw music. And we got Charlie McCoy, who we talked to, and it was, he's one of the great musicians of all time in Nashville's history. I thought we were telling a story that it was 50-50 murder and music. And the more we looked at it, the more we kept going back and forth. I would say, do you think he did it? And I'm not going to tell you what the answers were, but at some point early this year, the whodunit part took over. It started off to be this interesting retelling of a story, and then it was, oh my goodness, wait a minute, this isn't right.
It became less and less clear. And that to me was really compelling. The fact that we just were like, well, I don't know anymore.
Do you remember? Do you remember a moment like where you saw a piece of evidence or something someone said and you thought?
Well, there were many.
Wow,
I think
where you first kind of raised an eyebrow about that.
I think the biggest thing for me that I keep coming back to is the object that was used for the blow to the head. And how could it possibly be a bottle without it breaking? And I know like a full bottle is like, it's less likely to break, but like the force you would need to like cause that kind of damage to someone's skull, it would be immense. And like, it just
Yeah, and the audience doesn't know this, but he was stabbed multiple times to the
But
neck
that was
and the body.
superficial.
right.
Right. And I think 9 stabbings, I believe.
No,
Well, it was three slashes to the
3 15-inch wounds across ear to ear.
3 like this.
Yes.
But they were super. I thought he took a few stabbings to the body. That's not true.
His clothes were ripped.
Okay.
But he didn't have any
Okay.
stab wounds to his body.
And then the blunt force trauma, though, to the back of the head was what was fatal.
Yes.
And the story was always that it was a liquor bottle that
Mhm.
someone, Cavey, supposedly took off the
So
shelf.
this is a quick example of how we work together. So Kirstin just lays out what struck her about the story.
Yeah.
And then I go, well, didn't Jason Pence say that Cavey wasn't wearing gloves? So she gets the bottle is bothering her. Why isn't there fingerprints?
Yeah.
Why is there no connection to Cavey in that bar in any way? And the bottles were spouted. They have those red spouts,
Yeah.
every bottle. So if you take a bottle to swing it,
It's going to spill liquor.
there's going to be liquor all over the place because it's going to pour out the bottom.
Right.
And then if you just put it back, it's like, did he tidy up?
Right.
It's a weird
Right.
kind of I don't know how this happened the way that.
Well, it was a poor investigation. I'll tell you the moment that got me. Was like, well, you got to be kidding me. Was the Paul Dennis Reed?
Oh,
When
I know.
Right.
Who was already in prison or jail?
Yeah.
Yes.
he'd been caught 6 months earlier, and he's a listed suspect
Yeah.
in
Right.
Schulman's murder.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, Paul Dennis Reed is the fast food killer, probably our most famous serial killer in the city's history.
Mhm.
And he was on their short list of 22 suspects or something initially as a possible suspect.
Yeah.
Right.
And that makes you lose faith
Well,
in the process that was
Pence and
going into that
Cavey were not on the
investigation.
list.
Right.
So
Okay.
all 22 went nowhere,
Yeah.
and Pence and Cavey weren't on the list.
And talking about the
Right.
investigation, I know everyone keeps coming back to how poorly the scene was handled. And I would like to give a little bit of credit to the police department in that this was not initially a homicide investigation. They had a man who they thought had been slashed in the throat,
Oh, right.
and they assumed that was the major injury, right? They didn't know about the blow to his head until they did the autopsy. But in the moment, they saw a man who was bleeding profusely from a neck wound, so they needed to get him to the hospital. So things were definitely pushed aside and moved around because they were trying to get this injured man to the hospital.
Okay. I
So
never thought of it
in
that
their
way. You're right,
defense,
yeah.
it was not a homicide until hours later.
They were expecting him to survive.
3:00 in the morning,
Maybe,
he
yes.
died, and suddenly it was Al Gray took over the case as the homicide detective at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
So it went all night with them thinking we've got a robbery, and there were first responders in there that may have knocked pictures off the wall,
Right.
that may have stepped in blood, that
Mhm.
may have touched and moved, but they didn't clean up a broken bottle.
Right.
They didn't, alter the blood spatter in the bathroom.
Yeah.
So they had an impact, and the other thing, another amazing moment we go interview Tony Conway, who was Skull's buddy, who was Willie Nelson's booking manager.
This is the Farm Aid guy, right?
Yes,
Farm Aid.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
And he tells us that he gets a phone call from David Schulman's sister, Ethel, who needs him down at the scene because Skull's been stabbed. So he's there minutes after the stabbing.
Yeah.
And she wants him to get into Skull's private office with a safe, and he can't break open the door, so he hires a locksmith. Now they're walking through the crime scene.
They let all of these people in.
They let him in to walk through the crime scene to the back, and they took stuff out. They took valuables and things that they were going to give to Ethel Schulman later. The public had access to the crime scene.
Wow.
and
Yeah.
just amazing.
So-
it is an,
While I'm defending them for the whole
I
handling of
understand your
Skull,
defense. Right.
there were definitely things that they should not have done or should not have allowed. And today it would never fly, right?
I hope.
Yeah, you hope.
You know?
Right.
But it makes you wonder.
It
you
does.
know?
Yes.
That's another thing I hear people say, detectives, when they do these kind of podcasts and things, and they'll say, sometimes whether a case gets solved just depends on the detective that gets assigned to it.
Yep.
You know?
Well, this one did, because I'm not sure. I mean, Al Gray was going down a completely different path. He had talked to both of the guys who eventually got convicted. He had, it's hard to say that he had eliminated them as suspects, but he did not give them attention as suspects. And when he had a mishap in his career path,
Okay.
that you can hear in the podcast.
Yeah, I'm not to that episode yet.
He was replaced by E.J. Bernard, who solved it in a week. The unsolvable case with no evidence, a week, and he did it. And now he's the one that Pence said beat him and threatened him and coerced him into testifying. So, and there's more. That we interviewed the prosecutor who was in charge of all youth cases, Jim Todd, because Cavey was 17 at the time of the murder. Jim Todd took the case, and I've never heard a prosecutor talk so disparagingly about his own case. How did the witnesses see what they said they saw? How I didn't think I was going to win. I said, night before, jury's about to come in. What are you thinking? He goes, oh, we're losing this one. I was like, what? How can that be? Like, aren't you supposed to be sure?
Yeah.
Like,
If you take a case to that point, if you take a case all the way to trial,
aren't you supposed to be 100% or?
yeah, aren't you supposed to believe beyond a reasonable doubt?
where my head goes is it was political pressure, because it was such a high profile. It's probably
Victim,
this
Yeah.
victim, and there was a lot. Must have been a lot of pressure to get it solved, I would guess.
We
maybe.
didn't run in, like, there's not a written record of that. It just seemed like there was a crusading cop
Okay.
who wanted to solve this case, and he did. Whether he got witnesses to say they saw blood on which day, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
He found a couple of people who saw James Cavey with blood.
Amazing. Really amazing. Well, I don't. Oh, you have some questions you want me to? I know I can't see the chat. So, Dreaming of Blue Skies and Sandy Beaches asks, which cases impacted you the most and why? If you could choose only one case to solve instantly, what case would you choose and why?
Oh.
Do you have one as a breaking news reporter that stuck with you?
That's unsolved.
Well, her first question is just one that impacted you.
Yeah.
And then I think so it's kind of two questions.
For me, this one, I mean, because it caught us by surprise, like I tried to explain earlier, when you're making a podcast, you have to kind of decide, are we doing an interesting retelling? Is this just a movie of the week?
Right.
Or are we doing journalism where we are uncovering things that are going to affect people's lives? And when it started to turn in that direction, this became the most important. Like, I would like to see this go further. I don't know. I'm not going to take a public position about James Cavey's innocence or guilt, but I know that there were problems with that investigation that someone should look at. And that's really important to me. And in season 1, we didn't have that as much, you could say the same thing about Sammy Sadler's involvement, but this one, there's a guy in prison.
Yeah.
And that is looming over what we do. When we show up to work in the morning, there's a guy in prison
Yeah.
who, and we've now talked to him 8-10 times. He's a hardened guy who's angry about life and what's happened to him. And he, if he's telling the truth, and if Pence is now telling the truth, he's been dealt the worst possible hand. And so we go to work every day in our nice office in our high-rise building and go to lunch and have tacos and talk about it. And he's in prison.
And each day he's wondering.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's dependent, because he's dependent on us, because there is no attorney. There's no group that has got behind him. We found an online petition done on his behalf, but nothing official. And now that Pence has come forward, now there are banner headlines in our newspaper about this. Now we have a podcast that lays out the details that your audience can see if they go to Apple or all the streaming services. I just challenge you to listen and come up with your own conclusion. I think there's enough where you can come to a conclusion about this case. I undercut your answer, but
No, I mean, I would, as far as impact, I think I would probably say something very similarly. This is this kind of situation where you have a key witness in a very well-known case recant their testimony that put another man in prison. It doesn't happen very often for a reporter in their career. I mean, how long have you been doing this? Has this ever happened before?
Time. Yeah.
And so it's wild to think of the implications that could come from such a thing and from the reporting that we've done.
When that story came out, when you guys published your, in the paper, has there been a reaction from the public? Has there been kind of have people given you guys calls saying?
James Cavay's family's been in tears.
Yeah.
They are so grateful. I talked to him on the phone right after, within an hour of Pence talking to me, and he was in tears. It's like someone finally listened after all these years. At the same time, we've gotten the response that you liberals are just out to make the cops look bad, and the cop who died can't defend himself, and they got the right guys. These guys deserve to fry. They should have had the death penalty. So we've heard.
You've gotten that back. You've gotten that kind of feedback.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I told him the other day, I was like, hey, you should reach out to Councilwoman Sherry Weiner.
Who I'm talking with tomorrow morning.
Are you?
Yeah,
okay. Who is she and her ex-husband Sonny are probably like the people who are closest to the Schulman family left, because his sister Ethel, Skull's sister, has passed, and so
neither of them
had kids, so that's it. And so I said you should reach out to Sherry and see, because she did not mince words when we asked what would you have liked to have happened to these men. And she and her ex-husband were both very adamant about how they thought that they should be punished for what happened. And then I told him, I was like, you should reach out to her. And her response to the podcast was disappointingly intriguing. And she didn't elaborate in the moment.
She said she wanted to talk to me, and she was traveling today, and so we have a call tomorrow morning.
So we don't know if that means that she is disappointed to find out all of this information, and that everything she knew could be wrong.
Well, that's what
right? That's kind of how we take it too, but we won't know until tomorrow.
But I mean, can you imagine? You think someone you love has gotten justice, and that somebody's been in prison, and you probably have all kinds of feelings about it, and then you find out it may not be the right person.
Right.
Well, and the depth and the detail over 8 episodes, you're hearing it over and over and over again. Wait a minute. I thought that cops were supposed to act this way. And how did this happen? And oh my goodness, that happened too, and that too. And now the guy's calling and saying that he made it up on the witness stand. And so
yeah, I mean, that's his statement. That's not anything you're creating. He reached out to you,
right.
you know. So I mean, blaming you for you're the messenger essentially.
Yes.
I mean, you know,
that happens.
It happens quite frequently.
Breaking news, that happens.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you're not really painting a narrative when he calls you to say he's recanting his story.
And I think we've talked about this all the time too. Like, he has no reason. There's no motivation other than like guilt in his situation. Like, there's nothing that is forcing him to come to us and tell us that he was coerced and that he lied on the stand. He could potentially be, I don't know the statute of limitations on perjury, but that's perjury, right?
Or your immunity. What happens to your immunity in that situation? If you've made a deal,
right? Don't know.
I don't know how that works that many years later.
Right. So
he by the way, is afraid.
Yes.
He doesn't trust Nashville police. He's worried about some trumped up charges against him. He said he's a truck driver, and he says he doesn't stop when he drives near Nashville. He doesn't trust anybody around here. He thinks his life is in danger because of what he did.
I mean, I don't blame him for feeling that way. What did he say? Bernard beat him with a phone book or something like that was his story, you know, in the elevator.
And what a specific
yes
detail. I have never heard of that. I've heard a lot of people tell me a lot of things. But Jim Todd, the prosecutor, says in the podcast, when you do an E.J. Bernard case, you have to take into account his reputation. He has a reputation for being rough. And he was in this case. He was with James Cavey. He put Cavey on the floor. Mm-hmm. And that became an issue in the trial. And Todd's advice to him was document everything. We'll use it. We'll tell the jury about it. But that's E.J. Bernard. And
you know, if this ends up going the way it could go, and let's say Cavey, you know, is exonerated at some point, or even if there's just enough suspicion, all these cases he worked through his career.
Yes.
Everybody's going to look back and go, okay,
well, wait a minute.
What about these?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because you don't develop tactics like that for one case.
No.
You know, you would have that pattern through your career.
And in fact, I mean, that's kind of what led to him leaving the department, was a similar situation of kind of harassment.
Tell the story. Yeah.
I can't quite remember all the details, but it was
a woman dead in her bed.
Yes.
E.J. Bernard was the investigating officer. She had been dead for 3 weeks or more.
Yeah.
Found a gun at her side. Coroner said suicide. E.J. Bernard said murder because the dog was healthy. The woman had a dog living in the house. The dog was healthy. And so he said her adult son was a killer.
And was going over there taking care of the dog, but had killed his mother.
And the kid was cleared.
Yeah.
Bernard was found in an internal investigation to have falsified evidence, lied about the suspect, told the suspect's family that he was guilty.
Tried to convince them that this family member was guilty of this murder.
Like he tried to ruin this guy's life, and the internal investigation ruled in favor of the guy, not in favor of the cop. And so he resigned before the outcome of that investigation.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same guy who did this case.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. One, you know, and I'm a back the blue kind of person myself, but really one person can mess up a reputation for a whole department like that. So it's an amazing story, actually, the way that you uncovered there. Mrs. Do you have anything I don't want to be rude to their time. I want to be cognizant of that. Do you have any did the chat have any questions or anything that before we go? So Dreaming of Blue Skies says, amazing how Amazing show and work you all do. How does one transition from nursing to joining your team? Asking for a friend.
40 years of journalism experience will get you right in.
I did ask chat what case they would solve.
Oh, okay.
And our chat said Sebastian.
Yeah.
Sebastian.
Sebastian and Summerwell.
Oh, for
yeah.
sure. Everyone wants to know.
Yeah, but we don't know what happened to them.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
so those are at
And
this point missing persons.
They're missing
cases.
persons. Yes. That's how I prefer to think of them
Yeah.
until we
Yeah.
know more
It's
information.
so ours you could classify as cold case murders,
Yeah.
you know, and adjudicated murders. Tony D'Antonio went away and was convicted, and James Cavey went away and was convicted. So ours are in a different category of true crime, I guess.
Well, I love to hear the stories where there are answers, but there are also questions too.
yeah.
Right.
You know, where maybe everything's not wrapped up in a neat little bow, and there's things to discover. And anyway, I'm looking forward to the rest of the Skull Schulman story. He's a fascinating person, and all the little detours you guys take are great, and all the backstory and all that too. Well, I appreciate you being here with us. Unless there's anything else you want to talk about or anything else to mention, or
No,
I think we put up all the podcasts, where to find them and everything.
The only other question was about how they do their investigations, mostly like
Just in investigative
just in
questions.
general. No, just like and that was the only other question.
Techniques. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
techniques.
I guess people are curious as investigative journalists. What are techniques that you use? I mean, what are things maybe the public wouldn't know that are great tools for you?
In order to do this right, you have to base what you do on documents as much as possible. And Kirstin is an expert at finding how do we get these documents. So not only did we get court records, so you can go to the court, you can fill out a form, leave your name, and pull the file, and it's a box with all kinds of paperwork in it that have all the documents with dates and names and times, and you're there with your notebook and you write down as much as you can.
Right.
Then you could do the dance we did with the police file. And then there may be a future dance with blood evidence. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But there's more. Kirstin suggests one day, how about if we go to the police HR department and pull the files, the employee records of the two cops involved in this case. And so we spent a day doing that. So it's what we can't be is opinionated. We can't be, we think this is happening, but we're not sure. It has to be based on fact. A witness or a cop or somebody did a report that we can look at and shows that this happened.
Yeah.
That's, if you base everything on that, then you're still doing journalism. You're still doing a solid investigation. Does that kind of sum up?
Yeah, I think generally for me, whenever a source comes to me and says, hey, I have a scoop for you, and they tell me their story, and then my first immediate question back is what documents can I use, or can I find, or where would this information be to back up what you're telling me? It's not that I don't trust what you're telling me, but I need that little extra more, right? Because it's always better to have it in writing. And so through the work that I do daily, I knew exactly how to get police records. I knew how to get the court records. I knew that we could even get personnel files from the police department, because that's part of.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yes, you
I
can.
know you guys did that in
They
your
will,
work.
however. It tells you on the form that they will know if it's a current officer that works for the department. So, for example, anytime we have a shooting that involves a police officer in Nashville, I request that officer's personnel file just to look through and see if they've had any other documented discipline areas or anything like that that could suggest a pattern of bad behavior, right? Yeah. Because that officer still works for the department, they send him or her my information. So they know who is requesting your information.
Oh, that's nice.
So yes, so that is something to be aware of. But like I said, I do it all the time for work. And so, it's just kind of mostly being knowledgeable on what our Tennessee's public records say you can and cannot have as the public. So anything that we got for this case technically anyone can get. You know, anyone can request the case file from the court records. Anyone can request these police records. He may have to pay, which is something we also have to do, and that really sucks. But
Right.
if you're determined, you can
Might
do it
cost
too.
$900.
Right.
or,
And then step 2 is you have your 1,500 pages and you got your gray folders with the binders and all that, and you pull out all those names. Then you have to find them.
Yes.
You got to find those people, and you got to go and say, on October 3rd, it says that you did X. Do you remember that day? Tell us, was it raining? What were you wearing? Then you put the skin on the story, and they illuminate the facts that you've got, and if you find the right people who are really have good memories, then you go deeper with them. So you try to. And then, like we said at the very beginning, you ask uncomfortable questions. Well, it says here you were a suspect. Were you a suspect? Why were you a suspect? Why would the police believe that you did X, Y, Z? Probably not in that tone. I probably would ask it in a different way, or kind of get into that topic a different way.
Yeah.
But you've got to be able to ask uncomfortable questions. You've got to take the facts and tell a story based on the interviews and the facts, and say when you don't know. Just a funny example. I've always heard that Elvis gave Skull a dog.
Yes.
And I couldn't find that anywhere. So I say in the podcast, that's one of the things I could not corroborate. Did Elvis give him a dog? I heard that he gave him a scarf for the dog. I'm not sure, but I know Dinah Shore gave him a dog.
Yeah.
There's a Tennessean story about the airline flight with the dog and all that stuff. So that we've got a document, we've got a newspaper account of that incident. So on a small scale, that's what we do. Try to verify everything.
Yeah.
And finding people is its own skill in and of itself. Like it's
I thought about you. I think you said on your first season, it was at 65. You ended up talking to some number like that.
Yeah.
Well, I had 180 names.
Yeah.
And you just go through the file
so
and
much.
I make
Wild.
spreadsheets with all the names, phone number, address, email, what's their relation to the case, and I make this expanding file.
Yeah.
And then I yell, Kirsten, how are we going to find so and so? And then it starts.
Give me 2 seconds. I'll look it up. So for us, we have paid tools that we can use to help find people, find phone numbers and things like that. But we use a lot of social media. We know if they tend to skew a little bit older, they're probably on Facebook, right? If they tend to skew a little younger, they're on.
At me?
I'm gesturing.
Okay.
They're like on Instagram or Twitter, not Twitter anymore. But they're different. You have to kind of tune your search weapons depending on age sometimes. But
and then you cold call.
And
we sat in a room several days with names in front of us and just and tried to get them. And you're calling up people who have no idea what you're talking about. And then once in a while they go, oh, I grew up next door to James Convey.
Or they answer and go, no way. Like one of James's friends who had been trying to find him and did not know what had happened, did not know where he was. And he was like, dude, we just called him out of the blue. And he was like, I'm at work right now, but give me a call back in a couple hours. So we called him back and we kind of just chatted and to confirm some details that James had told us about this friend that he grew up with. And so there was a moment like that. And then we found one of the sons of she was a bartender. He was a witness technically. And then
the mother was a blood witness, and he told us about he also saw Convey with blood when he was busking, playing the guitar on the street corner one night. Didn't know exactly what night it was. So again, not sure about that. So
yeah. And then
but most of the calls are what? I don't know.
I don't know who. Yeah.
We tried to find
the
Diane Gaffney.
Yes. The woman who is allegedly the subject of Paul McCartney's song Sally G.
Yes, right.
He changed the name. It was Diane G. And for some reason he changed it to Sally G. And so Kirsten found a Diane Gaffney.
Who doesn't live far from here.
Yeah.
And I called and left this voluminous message. trying to explain. I'm trying to find out if Paul McCartney wrote a song about.
Could you
It sounded
imagine?
so weird when I
Getting that voicemail and be like, wait, is a song that Paul McCartney wrote about me? Like,
Right. She never called back.
No,
So
she never
I
called
don't
back.
know. But
She never called that.
yeah, most of the calls are like that.
Yeah.
Where the person has no idea what you're talking about, but you try.
Yeah.
and you can't be afraid to fail either, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a hard part for a lot of people. It's
We're
just
so
that,
used to failing.
that awkwardness
Yeah.
of like cold calling someone, and sometimes it's gonna go really well, and sometimes it's gonna blow up in your face, and that's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine.
That's what we do.
I was wondering if how much do you rely on your own instincts on if people are lying to you or not?
I think
A lot.
I think a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
It's very not necessarily in this case specifically, but I just had a situation with a story that I was working on where I was like, this doesn't feel right. And we
Right.
pulled it off embargo and we held the story. And then my coworker went to a court hearing and it turned out to be way
was
different.
right.
And I
Instincts were
was
right.
right.
She was
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
And so it's just something that we hone as we work in
You have
this
a bullshit
industry.
detector.
Yes.
What are things you look for?
I don't know specifics like
Like the phone book.
Like the phone book. When he said that, I'm like, he didn't know what I was going to ask, and he had an immediate recall of that. Now maybe he made it up, he planned this all, I don't know, but he was very specific. And I said, where did he hit you? In the stomach and in the ribs. He seemed to be recalling a very specific incident. It wasn't just he hit me. The cops beat me.
Yeah.
How did they beat you? With a phone book? What?
Yeah.
Wow. Where did they beat you? What did you say that prompted? He said, I called him corrupt. He hit me with a phone book. So it seems like a
believable 'cause it's
plausible.
yes.
Where did this happen? In the elevator? What were you wearing? He said, I was wearing a yellow jumpsuit. He had every detail. Not that it didn't seem like he was making up a story. He was recalling a story.
Right.
I could be wrong. And my intuition might be off, but it seemed that he was telling the truth with those quick details about that incident.
It's a bizarre detail to just make up.
Yeah.
A phone book.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
which
And for me, it's very behavior based for me. And I don't know if that's because I tend to be more in tune with the emotions of the people I'm talking to. But if in this specific instance I was just talking about, this attorney was like hounding me, the attorney for the guy who was filing this order. And it was supposed to be like an exclusive for us. And it just seemed like, it was like, why are you pushing so hard? That just seemed really out of norm for an attorney, in my opinion. And so like, if in my experience, if someone is telling the truth and wants to tell the truth, they're okay understanding the time it takes sometimes for us to do our job and corroborate what they're telling us, because they know that they are standing on truth. When people are lying, they tend to want things to move faster and get
So you
it
can't
out,
check.
so you don't have time to check facts. And so for me, it's very behavior based.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And I guess it's also different when you're calling them and they're calling you.
Correct.
Right.
People are reaching out to you. There's a reason.
Right.
Right.
And you got to wonder, what's the reason? Why
Right.
is this source pushing this on me?
Right.
Do they have an agenda
Mhm.
Right.
or not?
And I think people make a mistake about the media, as if Kirsten could be compromised. So when she has this feeling in her gut that something ain't right, she goes to her boss, who goes to their boss.
Mhm.
There's a whole
Whole chain of
everyone in the
custody.
newsroom- everyone in the newsroom is talking about, could this be? I'm not sure. There's a consensus of opinion. All these smart people who've done this their whole lives are suddenly weighing in, and the decision was made to hold that story
Correctly.
correctly. And sometimes we've gotten them wrong.
Yeah.
Sure.
But most of the time we err on the side of caution, and
Mhm.
we're not out to put people's lies in the newspaper. We're out to check
Yeah.
That's what we spend most of our time doing, is trying to track down what is true, what's not, what can you document, what can you corroborate, how many people saw it, what are their names. I need to call all of those people.
Yeah.
Find out, see if their stories match exactly. That's what reporting is.
Yeah.
I have one more question.
Yeah. Oh.
It's stuffing. Easy. Stuffing.
So you're stuffing.
Yeah.
I'm also stuffing.
Okay. So I'm stuffing also. So
Dressing.
Dressing.
It's been a debate.
What kind of human being are you?
I know.
we did a poll the other day on this, and it was pretty well
It was
right down the
50-50.
middle. And I
Really?
didn't know it was like that.
So is it maybe regional? Do you think? Are you from the South?
Yes.
Oh.
Are you from the
So I'm
South?
from this area. Yeah. I'm
Okay.
from the South.
Okay.
Well, that's interesting.
But
I'm West
my
Coast.
understanding is a lot of
Yeah,
people
see,
here.
yeah, people in the chat saying it's dressing.
Well, they're wrong. They are wrong too.
So, but I appreciate you guys coming in
Yeah.
meeting with us tonight. I just want to say, if you have not caught this podcast, it is fantastic. It is storytelling. It is the style to me makes me think of almost the VH1 Behind the Music kind of deep dive kind
Yeah.
of that's kind of what it feels like. It's that kind of feeling to me. It's an amazing podcast, so I hope everybody subscribes to it. I appreciate you guys being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to be following the James Cavay. If this develops at all, if there's any news on it, we'll be reporting on it and talking about it
The
here.
best way to follow it is sign up for the Facebook group, Murder on Music Row. When you sign up
Yeah.
for there, I post every single day, and I'll put new developments. That's the clearinghouse for every little detail.
Yeah.
It's going to be there.
It's a great Facebook group. I love all the pictures, all the little, so if you end up listening to the podcast and you kind of want that extra
Yeah.
on it, it is a great place to follow.
Yeah.
I love old pictures and all of that anyway, and you get a real feel for Printer's Alley and
Right.
all of that too. So that you're managing that really well.
Thank you.
You look proud of him.
I am proud of him.
Because I didn't know
He
anything.
has to come to me
of-
and ask me all the time about social media. And I told him the other day, he started an Instagram account as well. And
Okay.
and I told him, I was like, Keith, you're doing such a great job. I'm seeing it in my feed, which is really
Yeah.
good. And the content is really good. And I heard he walked away and he stops at our boss's office, which is a couple offices down from where I sit. And he goes, did you hear that? Kirsten said I'm doing a good job on Instagram.
That's
So.
right.
Well, so thank you so much for being here. We're gonna go unless you got another question
Their
or
links are in our description.
links are yes.
Thank you.
Links are in the description
We've been
and
writing through chat as well.
and yeah, they're all through the chat and all that also.
Looks like Dreaming's already signed up.
Yes. I'm sure.
That's great.
Thank you,
anyway,
Dreaming.
Dreaming's the
She's
best.
the
She's the best. So but thank you so much for being here. And I guess we'll
Elbow did too.
Hobo joined also. So you will not be disappointed. It's great storytelling. It's the way true crime should be done in that way. So thank you for being here, and we appreciate everybody joining. I know I'm usually much more active in the chat. I just couldn't see it from this position. But thank you so much for everybody for being here and all of our mods and everybody too. We'll be back at least Friday probably for our weekly update, if not earlier. But thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.
Unraveling these mysteries. Stay a while and share your thoughts. Help us break down this mystery. Grab a seat. We guarantee you're in wonderful company. Unraveling these mysteries with Mr. and Mrs. E. Unraveling these mysteries with Mr. and Mrs. E.